you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute. Now, here's your host of the Kurtiss Riggs Show, the voice of the Sioux Falls Storm, Rich Roste.
And good afternoon, and hi, everybody. I'm Rich Roste, and welcome to the Kurtiss Riggs Show. And it has been a wild weekend for the Sioux Falls Storm and for myself traveling with the Sioux Falls Storm. Things, when you travel and you try to get a plane for 30 people, you can't always get everybody on the same flight. So part of the team and most of the team left on Saturday as they got up, and they left about 6 o'clock Saturday morning. They were out in Arizona by the morning, and then there were 5 of us that traveled out at a different time, and we left Sioux Falls on Saturday night about 8 o'clock at night, got into Arizona because of the time change and everything. We were down there probably 9:30, 10 o'clock at our hotel. So the next day we have the game, and then this morning, and it feels like it's been 2 days ago, but this morning, the 5 of us have to get ready to catch a 6:50 a.m. flight in Mesa, which is a ways away from Phoenix. So our day started about 3 o'clock this morning to get up and get ready, get on the road, get through traffic, and get all the way over to Mesa to pick up the flight. And we got back into Sioux Falls 11:30 this morning. So we left at 8 o'clock Saturday night. We're back in Sioux Falls from Phoenix at 11:30 this morning. The team, on the other hand, is not getting back until about 11 o'clock tonight. So they left Sioux Falls again Saturday morning about 6 o'clock, somewhere in there. They won't get back until 11 or so tonight. A long weekend for them, a very short weekend for the rest of us. So it's been an interesting time and a very fast trip. But we had a chance, and I had a chance to talk to Coach Riggs, and we'll be talking about the game out in Arizona. We'll be talking about the other games around the IFL. And the interview went a little bit differently than I had planned. So what I'm going to do is I'll introduce him, and I'll talk a little bit, and then I'll play the snippet of his comments as far as the league, and also comments about the game where the Arizona Rattlers defeated the Storm by a score of 58-40. Also on the show today, we're going to be talking to a new trainer with the Sioux Falls Storm. John Shape works with Orthopedic Institute, who is one of the major sponsors of the Kurtiss Riggs Show. But we'll talk to John about his role and how he came to become a trainer, and also how he became a part of the Sioux Falls Storm. And this was his first major road trip with the Storm. Then also on the show, a little bit later in the broadcast, we'll be talking to a Hall of Famer of the IFL, and that's Corey Johnson. Corey, outstanding defensive nose guard for the Sioux Falls Storm, played many years. We'll find out exactly when we talk to him. And what he contributed to the Sioux Falls Storm is amazing, is what he did on the field. He's also the all-time sack leader in the history of the Sioux Falls Storm, as his career extended for a long time. And he played, and now he is an active coach, defensive line coach, special teams coach with the Sioux Falls Storm. We'll talk to Corey Johnson a little bit later in the Kurtiss Riggs Show. Then in the final segment with the coach, we won't be talking to him because the time ran out, because they're still getting ready. They're boarding on the plane down in Arizona as we speak. We didn't have time to get that half of the interview completed. And we'll talk about what the game is coming up in Bismarck, North Dakota. The Storm will be taking on the Bismarck Bucks. That game is going to be on Saturday as a 6:05 kickoff. 6:05 kickoff on Saturday, and you can hear that game on our sister station, FM 107.9. Now, the Kurtiss Riggs Show is proudly presented each week by the official Storm sports medicine provider, Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital, the Storm official healthcare team, and the only 5-star rated hospital in Sioux Falls, and also by Orthopedic Institute, the one to trust. So coming up next, we'll be having a conversation with the Storm head coach, Kurtiss Riggs, and you're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show right here on FM 98.1, AM 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN.
On the average day, the Winklers are a splendid little family. But today is not your average day. It all started when little Susie went in for her first bite of cereal. Dad went to investigate, but had issues of his own along the way. That's when it became blatantly clear the furnace was broken and it was time to call the service guys. Waterbury, we are service.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Roste.
And welcome back to the Kurtiss Riggs Show. And this segment brought to you by Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. And they've been sponsors since day one with the Sioux Falls Storm. Come see what fresh really is. They're baked fresh, sliced fresh, delivered fresh. Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs, #1 in delivery sales for the Good Sense franchise system for the past 20 years. That's Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Man, that's good. Like I said earlier today, actually just not very long ago, I caught up with the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm as he was heading out to the airport, and actually got to the airport, got through check-in, and had a conversation with him. And we're just going to kind of touch on some different points that we had talked about and carry it through also on our next segment. We'll be doing it the same way. And whenever you have a tough loss and a long trip, and the way the game turned out as the Storm lost to the Arizona Rattlers 58-40, one of the first things you always ask them, how you doing? And this is what Coach said.
Oh, not bad. We're still here at the airport, waiting for a flight to get out of here, but we're doing okay.
And one thing about it with head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Kurtiss Riggs, it doesn't matter if the game was a great game and a win or a loss. He's always the same with me on the radio. He's always very courteous, and he's always very factual as far as what happened in the game, and always willing to talk even about the bad things and the good things. And he had some interesting things. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But in this first segment, we talk about the games going around the IFL. And Friday night, it was the Green Bay Blizzard defeated the Quad City Steamwheelers 29-26. And here were the comments that Coach had about that game.
Yeah, I did actually, Rich. And Quad Cities was up 26-7, I believe, at one point. And Green Bay was able to shut them out in the second half and find a way to come back and win that game at Quad Cities.
As we went on with our conversation, then we talked about the game with Nebraska and Bismarck. And in that ball game, Nebraska was victorious 40-29, and that game was played on Saturday. And I wasn't sure if Coach had a chance to see that game, but here's his answer.
Well, I was able to watch that. I mean, it was a Saturday night game, yeah, and so at the airport or the hotel, I was able to watch some of that game. And Bismarck is getting better. I mean, they hung with Nebraska, stayed within a touchdown, but just couldn't find a way to get over that hump. And so you see their guys are playing hard. They're hungry for a win. Nebraska, though, just was able to kind of out-athlete them, have better athletes on the field that can make plays.
Now, coming up for the Sioux Falls Storm this weekend is they'll be taking on the Bismarck Bucks. And that game is going to be on Saturday, 6:05 kickoff. Not 7:05, but 6:05 kickoff. And we'll have that game for you on our sister station, FM 107.9. Then the Iowa Barnstormers took on the Cedar Rapids River Kings, and Iowa was victorious in that game, 41-20. And here were Coach Riggs' comments about that game.
A pretty good football team. Yeah, I mean, they definitely, their go-to guys, Ryan Ballantyne. The quarterback seems to be doing a nice job, very athletic, can run, and they're flying around the field. So it looks like they have another good team this year.
They were talking about the Iowa Barnstormers, and the Sioux Falls Storm are going to be playing the Iowa Barnstormers a couple of times this year. The first time is going to be here in Sioux Falls on April 20th, and that's a 7:05 kickoff. But that's also the first night that the Sioux Falls Storm will be on this station, on KWSN. The first games of the season were on FM 107.9, and then from April 20th through the May 18th game, all Sioux Falls Storm games will be here, right here on KWSN, right, 98 FM 98.1, AM 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Then the final part of the season, starting on June 1st, then the Storm games will be on Kello AM 1320, and we'll be talking more about that as the season progresses. Now, when we talked about the Iowa-Cedar Rapids game, then we talked about San Diego and Tucson. And in that ball game, Tucson Sugar Skulls victorious 51-31 over San Diego. And here were Coach Riggs' comments about that game and also about Tucson.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see any of this one. We don't play Tucson ever, but we will play San Diego at one point. Tucson, though, as you sit there and say that, they're one of the few teams that does play Arizona, and they play them 4 times. So, they really need to make sure they win games like this because it's a difficult matchup with them against Arizona.
Now, as far as the standings are concerned within the IFL, right now it is a tie for first place. The Arizona Rattlers and the Iowa Barnstormers, both undefeated, 4-0 records, followed by Sioux Falls, 4-1. And then Tucson is 3-1 as an expansion franchise team. And then Green Bay has moved into the next spot. They are 3-2, followed by the Quad City Steamwheelers. They are 2-3. And then Nebraska, 2-3 also. And Cedar Rapids, 1-4. Bismarck's 0-4, and San Diego is 0-5. And when Coach and I were talking about it, we talk about the playoff situation. It's early in the season, but the way the playoffs are set up this year in the IFL, it's going to be the top 2 teams in the league will have byes the first round of the playoffs. The next 4 teams will be seeded, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And 3 will be hosting 6, and 4 will be hosting 5. But that may not happen, and Coach Riggs will talk about it in this segment.
It will, and it'll be interesting because not everyone plays everyone. I mean, the schedule is definitely not evenly dispersed, and so there's certain games that really become important, and then it's which of the higher seeds slip up somewhere and fall to a lower seed. Those games could be very pivotal for the race. And then I think one thing we got to remember too, they'll look at geographic locations for when they do the playoff seedings. The seeds may get thrown out because of geographic regions. Yeah, and so I'm not sure really why we seed. Because if let's say we were to have to play Tucson and Arizona were to have to play Iowa, they would flip those, and Tucson would go to Arizona, and we would get Iowa. I think the owners all agreed on that to help save with, when you have to play a team like last year when we had to go to Arizona on a 5-day turnaround, to get flights and everything, it ends up costing us, over $35,000, and that's a hefty expense that you usually don't account for because it being a playoff appearance, and it's on the team. I mean, the league doesn't take care of that.
And those were the comments that Coach Riggs had about the IFL and the games going on around the IFL. Again, it was Green Bay defeated Quad Cities, and then Nebraska defeated Bismarck, and Iowa defeated Cedar Rapids, and Tucson defeated San Diego, along with Arizona defeated the Sioux Falls Storm 58-40. Now, we'll talk about that game in the next segment, but this segment brought to you by Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs, #1 in delivery sales for the entire Good Sense franchise system for the past 20 years. Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Man, that's good. We'll be back with more of the Kurtiss Riggs Show after we pause for this timeout right here on FM 98.1, AM 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN.
No one. When should you visit Sioux Falls Urgent Care? When that common cold is not so common. When that chicken definitely needed 2 more minutes. Or when you shouldn't have done it yourself. Sioux Falls Urgent Care specializes in medical fixes for life's glitches. We're faster than the ER at a fraction of the cost. So, when you're down from a sofa stage dive, see us. Walk-ins are welcome and most insurance is accepted. Visit Sioux Falls Urgent Care today.
Hey guys, Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler here. I'm here at one of my favorite places in the entire world, the wrestling room. But if there's one thing we know about wrestling rooms, they can get extremely dirty. We're talking skin infections, we're talking about funk, we're talking about smelly armpits, we're talking about all kinds of stuff. So, my friends at Pure and Clean Sports came up with an awesome solution. Spray it right on your skin, wipe it off, smells great, keeps you clean from the time you leave the mats to the time you can get home and shower. Not only is it the greatest skin defense in the entire world, it's the safest. Check them out, pureandcleansports.com.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Roste.
And this segment of the Kurtiss Riggs Show brought to you by Eastway Bowl, the perfect spot for family fun. And Eastway Sports Lounge, the official Storm Road Game viewing party hosts for all Storm fans. And the next viewing party is going to be coming up this Saturday, 6:05, as the Storm takes on the Bismarck Bucks. He is the Storm head coach, Kurtiss Riggs, and I had a chance to talk to him before he got on the plane coming back from Arizona. And I talked to him in their pregame interview. I talked about the fact this is a game where both of these teams are going to find out some things about themselves they may not know because they haven't totally been tested during the course of the season. And this was what Coach Riggs thought he learned about the Sioux Falls Storm in this ball game.
I think one thing it showed me is when we're clicking. I mean, we can play with anybody. I mean, we can match anyone in the league, blow for blow, and definitely go at it. But then as we started to fall apart a little bit, we just didn't really have guys that took the team by control and said, hey, we got to stop the bleeding here. Let's get control. And we couldn't stop it the second half. I think first half as we were fresh, really well. Second half as we got tired, we didn't respond well. And as you get tired, you just start to think a little bit more, take a little more time doing things. Don't quite have the same effort, energy going into things, and you can't have that against a team like Arizona, who's as physical as they are. And then when we had the mishaps, with the bad snaps, and as we started to fall behind and trying to play catch up, they did a good job of really getting us out of our game plan.
Now, one of the things that we talked about during the broadcast was there in the second half there was a lot of snaps back to Lorenzo Brown that were rolling back or bouncing back, and Chris Taylor, who was starting at center, and this was his very first game playing center, not just indoor football, first time playing center at all. And we talked about that, and here's Coach Riggs' response about that and why he started in that game yesterday.
Yeah, well, for someone like Chris Taylor at center, playing his first game at center, to have the nose guard that Arizona brings, and they actually rotated two massive bodies, but McDowell alone is close to a 400-pounder that can really move, and he just continually comes hard at you and just wears you down. And you saw it. You saw where you saw this most was the effects of the snap and then trying to catch and get in front of him and continuing to protect Lorenzo. You noticed that, and you saw, guys not quite staying on their blocks quite as long, and it just taking its toll on us.
One thing about during the course of the game, the Storm started a new running back in Kalen Campbell, and he had a big night. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, showed his speed. He also had a kick return for a touchdown. Here's Coach Riggs' comments about Kalen Campbell.
Well, Lawrence Martin, left to go play for Atlantic City. And when you practice, you can't replicate a game. And so we felt like from practice that, Chris is going to be okay. We'll be okay. He's not Lawrence, but he definitely is good. And you saw it the first half. I mean, I thought he played very well, and then he just wore down. He just got tired, and he'll get more accustomed to learning how he doesn't always need to take the heavy blow from this nose guard coming at him, and the ways to play smart rather than just try to be physical every play.
And now here are the comments about Chris Campbell.
Yeah, I thought he did some really good things. He runs very hard, and is very explosive. There's not a lot of wiggle with him. He's going to get going fast and downhill. He did a good job there. The kick return was a big pickup for us at a key moment. And then, where he needs to improve, though, is still the blocking and picking up the blitz. He could do a better job. He'll see that on film and see what he needs to do differently.
Now, one of the things that you talk about in a ball game when things go well for you or they don't go well, what are things that are areas of commission or what are areas of omission, and how can a coaching staff correct those things? And this is what Coach Riggs answered.
Well, I think you look at scheme-wise, where are we not being effective? Where are we either not understanding our jobs or not performing? And those are correctable things. Some of them was just their personnel being better than ours in the matchups. And so we need to try to find ways to give us an advantage, even though maybe they have a better personnel than us.
Now, also points off of turnovers was a big part of the game. Arizona had 21 points off of Sioux Falls Storm turnovers, and the Storm scored 10 points off of Arizona turnovers. And here's Coach Riggs' comment about that.
Well, I think even more critical is when you fumble and they scoop and score. When the turnover gives the points. I think that's even more impactful because then the crowd just really gets ignited, and those are tough to really stop the momentum and the bleeding. So when we had a fumble and Merriweather scooped it and scored, that's really. And I don't think you can align turnovers and say, hey, the points ended up this way. It's really where was the swings in the game.
Now, Coach, I've talked a little bit more about the game, and I asked him, do you have any final thoughts about the game? And here's what he said.
Mark now.
And I guess it wasn't brought together, but his final thoughts were, no, I have no final thoughts. It's on to Bismarck, and that's who the Storm plays this coming Saturday, 6:05. So coming up next, we'll be talking with a new trainer with the Sioux Falls Storm, John Shape. As the Kurtiss Riggs Show continues, this segment brought to you by Good Sense. Check that. It's brought to you by Eastway Sports Lounge and the viewing parties this coming Saturday. Coming up next, more of the Kurtiss Riggs Show right here on FM 98.1, AM 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN.
First Premier Bank Free Plus Checking gives you the freedom to experience life, to enjoy the things you love, and to breeze through checkout lines with free mobile wallet features. Bank anywhere you want with online account opening and instant issue debit cards. Feel the freedom of no fees, no minimum balances, and no unpleasant surprises. First Premier Bank Free Plus Checking. Apply online or at any branch location. First Premier Bank, member FDIC.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Roste.
And welcome back to the Kurtiss Riggs Show. And this segment brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. And after we go to break, we'll take your third call at 336-1230 for free tickets for the next Storm home game. That's on April 20th when the Storm hosts the Iowa Barnstormers, who defeated the Storm in the United Bowl last year. So that one's going to be a dandy. So those are great tickets to get. Just be the third caller, 336-1230, for free tickets for that ball game again on April 20th. He is a new member of the Sioux Falls Storm training staff. And welcome to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, John Shape. How are you doing today, John?
Not too bad. How are you, Rich?
It was a quick trip for us. You were a part of the 5 that traveled out early. That was later, actually, and we left early this morning. I don't think we could have crammed much more into those a day and a half or about 2 days, could we?
No, not at all. It was pretty full.
And then to get up about 3 o'clock this morning to head back to Sioux Falls, and we all made it, and that was the great thing about that.
Exactly.
Now, tell me a little bit about your background, John. Where did you grow up and things like that?
So I grew up out in Spencer, South Dakota. Went to school at Bridgewater Emory, finished there, and then moved up to Brookings and went to school up at State up there. Graduated from State with a Bachelor's of Science in Athletic Training.
Now, I talked to you earlier about this when we were standing out there about 3 o'clock this morning, 3:30, and you were how old when the Spencer tornado hit?
I was 3.
You were 3 years old, but tell me what it was like for your family or the things that you heard about your family and how that devastating tornado affected them, but even more especially their neighbors.
I guess growing up, we heard a lot about it all the time, kind of how it wiped the town out. There's about half as many people that are there now, and my dad still owns the same house. We were one of probably 10 or fewer houses that were still left on the north side of town there. Yeah, I guess it was pretty devastating to everybody, and no matter who you talk to, they can all still remember it pretty vividly.
But you said that your house received minimal damage, but you found that the doors didn't work as well because the house had been twisted a bit, hadn't it?
Yep, the wind and the pressure changes and everything like that, it kind of caused the house to shift, and you get some of the doors that couldn't close all the way because of it.
Now, John, tell us a little bit, why did you wanted to become, we're talking to John Shape with the Sioux Falls Storm, why did you want to become an athletic trainer?
So I had shoulder injuries when I was in high school and middle school there, and just the way that our athletic trainer, Terry Truex, there at Orthopedic Institute had helped me, kind of made me want to go into something similar and help other student athletes and be able to get them back to where they could participate at full strength, if not better than where they were at previously.
Now, did you find that the education matched your anticipation of what it would be like?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually started out as a biology pre-medicine major there. Kind of realized that I didn't want to sit behind a computer desk and read scans as a radiologist every day. So then I transferred over to the athletic training program as a sophomore in college, and it was by far probably one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
What makes it, for you, a satisfying career thus far?
Thus far, just being able to help the students and see where they're at after an injury, and then get them back and rehab them back so that they're able to participate and see the joy and satisfaction they have when they can get back out there.
In your short career, though, there's probably things that you've found that have been frustrating in the fact that either the athlete doesn't do what you tell them to do as far as rehab, or there's something that you just can't fix. Tell us about maybe some of those parts of your training and also parts of your career.
So even in college there, you get some of the athletes that they'd come in and they'd say that they were doing everything, and they'd say that they were following the rehab protocol the way that we had laid it out for them, and you can tell going through, and you can tell when they're lying about different things if they're not to where they should be at, and that's probably one of the most frustrating things is not having them be compliant.
Now, how did you wind up with the Sioux Falls Storm?
So as a second-year student in the athletic training program up there in Brookings, I came down and I followed Brad Fifley for one of my rotations, and I got to know him fairly well. And he asked me if I had any interest in an internship last year with the Sioux Falls Storm as a student intern. for the athletic training department or training staff. And I said, yeah. So I came down and worked with the Storm last year as an intern while I was still going to school up in Brookings there. And then that kind of turned into a job at OI there. And then that led me to come back this year as a assistant athletic trainer.
Well, I tell you what, you learned some from the best. When the names that you had mentioned, you talked about the one earlier when you were in high school, and his name again was?
Terry Truex.
Oh, yes, and he's a stalwart member of the staff over there. Then Brad Fifley, and now Ryan Brink is your head trainer with the Sioux Falls Storm, and his expansive education and also his experience has to be a learning experience for you every day, isn't it, John?
Oh, by far it is. I've probably learned more hands-on things here in the last 6 months of working at OI and through the Storm than I did a lot of it up at school. I mean, there's just so many different things that I've gotten to know from these guys that have 20, 30 years of experience.
Well, I really appreciate what you bring to the Sioux Falls Storm, and I wish you the very best. You've been a great addition, and thanks for being on the Kurtiss Riggs Show, John Shape.
No problem. Thank you very much, Rich.
Very good. Assistant athletic trainer with the Sioux Falls Storm, John Shape. When we go to break, we'll take your third call at 336-1230. 4 free tickets for that game coming up on April 20th against the Iowa Barnstormers. And you're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show on FM 98.1 AM 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN.
Hi, I'm Mike Schulte, owner of Schulte's Subaru.
The Rostes wanted their new house to be unique, so they went back to Fireplace Pros. The upstairs is traditional, but the downstairs is very modern. They are delighted.
We wanted a different look and feel within our house, and Fireplace Pros, as always, helped us make it happen. They're the best.
Visit us on the web or stop by your nearest Heat & Glow or Heatilator dealer. Fireplace Pros, Heat & Glow, and Heatilator. You're going to love the way your home feels.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Roste.
And welcome back to the Kurtiss Riggs Show. This segment brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. And after we go to break, we'll have the Storm game ticket giveaway brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. And we'll take the third call, 336-1230, for 4 free tickets to the next home game. That's April 20th when the Storm hosts the Iowa Barnstormers. Joining us now on the Kurtiss Riggs Show, a member of the Indoor Football Hall of Fame as a defensive nose guard, longtime player with the Sioux Falls Storm, and now an assistant coach with the Storm, Corey Johnson. Corey, thanks for being on the Kurtiss Riggs Show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rich.
I was talking to John Shape before we talked to you and talked about our whirlwind trip out to Phoenix, Arizona and back, and we crammed a lot into those about a day and a half or 2 days, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, it went smoothly, though, besides this morning being about a half hour, 40-minute delay. But other than that, I mean, everything went pretty smooth for us, so no complaints there.
Now, Corey, you grew up at Aberdeen, didn't you, and played high school football at Aberdeen Central?
Yeah, yep. I was an Aberdeen Central Golden Eagle. Mike Flockus was my head coach. I was actually when I was a sophomore, that was his first year as the varsity head coach.
Okay.
Steve Svensson had stepped away, and then, graduated in 2001. We lost the state championship 21-14 at Brookings. We threw 5 turnovers. I'll never forget it, as you can tell.
Other than that, it doesn't mean much, does it? No.
Yeah.
But then you went on to become a member of the football squad up at St. Cloud State University. Tell us about your time up there.
Great time. We when I got there, I hadn't really done a lot of. I mean, I did some research, and I was looking at UND, St. Cloud, NDSU, the NCC schools, and I chose St. Cloud just because they kind of told me I would be ready to play right away. And that provoked me, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go as a freshman and play. I don't want to sit a year. And I quickly realized that's not very smart, like, especially in the trenches. Like, me at 18 years old playing against grown men at 22 that have had a 3 or 4 year program of weightlifting. Not the same, not ready, not even close. But yeah, great. I mean, we won a conference championship in 02. I think it was 02 or 03, and then we always had a winning record. We were always competitive. I lost to UND twice by a last-second field goal. One was in overtime. One was a 53-yarder with 1 second to go in the game. Otherwise, I'd be 4-1 against them, and they're always one of the most dominant teams. But yeah, loved St. Cloud, loved it.
Talking with Corey Johnson, a Hall of Famer with the Sioux Falls Storm, and now on the coaching staff. How did you wind up coming down here to play football for the Sioux Falls Storm, and how long did you expect to be here?
I had a couple of different opportunities. Vermont had reached out. There was a team out there, the Green Bay Blizzard, the Sioux City Bandits, and the Sioux Falls Storm. Had all inquired. I had gotten hurt my senior year at college, so opportunities were limited, obviously. And my grandma, God rest her soul, had been diagnosed with cancer and was, slowly deteriorating. And I wanted to be close to her. And I'm from Aberdeen, so Sioux Falls, 3 hours away. They had just won a championship. Now, once again, I didn't do a ton of research. I didn't know they were 8-8 and won a championship. But they had just won a championship, and I was told, our nose tackle is moving on to law school, and at the time that was Bill Gaston, and he's going to do other things, so we're looking for a nose tackle. And I was like, okay, so I'm close to home. They won a championship. Yeah, let's go do it. And I literally, I tell new guys this story because it's always funny, and I'll keep it real quick because I know we're limited, but I literally moved my entire life from St. Cloud to here. Like, I got a U-Haul, packed everything up, like literally not one item that I owned was left in St. Cloud. And when I got here, we're sitting in that opening meeting, the one that you talk at, and Kurtiss says, now look around, there's 40 guys here. And at the time, we had 30-man rosters. It was 45 and 30. There's 45 guys here, and we got to cut down to 30. So over the next couple of days, you need to be giving it your all. And, but if you get cut, be a professional, blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking around like, I signed a contract. Like, ain't I on the team? And I
so you believed your recruiter, and you believed in the first coming meeting that you're a part of it.
Yeah, and I'm looking around the room going, that looks like a nose tackle. That looks like a nose tackle. That could be a nose tackle. Oh man, I better do something these next couple of days. But yeah, and the rest is history.
And you were a part of the Sioux Falls Storm for how many years?
10 playing seasons. I get a lot of crap from Kurtiss, especially. Maybe not 10 full seasons, but I was on the team for 10 years.
10 years, yeah. And you wound up being the all-time sack leader because of your longevity.
Yes, I for sure Emmitt Smith that record. I say that because like Emmitt Smith, he broke the rushing record, but he had played X amount of more games. Same thing with me. Like we had D linemen that were unbelievable. Nate Floyd is the greatest. Nate Floyd to me is the greatest DN to ever play for the Sioux Falls Storm, and he held the sack record, and he did it in like 4 seasons or 5 seasons. Obviously unbelievable. And then Rockman Crable is the most important D lineman we ever had because he was a dominant DN and he was also a dominant nose tackle. So nothing to take away from other guys that have been around. I played 10 years and I happened to average, 6.5 sacks or whatever the record is. So it is what it is.
Talking with Corey Johnson, now a defensive line coach with the Sioux Falls Storm. What's it been like to transition from player to coach?
The first couple of years it was tough, because I still had the itch. And I don't know if you ever get rid of the itch, because there's even times now where I'm like, man, if I went and played right now, I feel like I could help us. It's been good. Like I said, the first 2 years were a little tough because I had the itch. I was coaching guys that I had played with, and so that's always, a transition that, you got to learn how to separate the two. Like, hey, I know we're boys, but I'm now your coach, so you need to listen to me. Because I would say my coaching style is I take after my D-line coach from St. Cloud. I'm really hard-nosed, and I tell you like it is, and I expect you to want to be perfect, because that's how I was. That's how I played. Like, I know I wasn't perfect, obviously, but I mean, I always studied film and made sure I was putting myself in the best position and helping our team achieve the ultimate goal. And that's what I want out of my guys. Just great effort and just work your butts off, because if you work hard, the rest will take care of itself. And but yeah, coaching's been good. The last 2 years have been awesome. No complaints, and hopefully I get to keep doing it for as long as Kurtiss will have me around.
And you were honored by being elected into the Indoor Football Hall of Fame. Congratulations to that, and well deserved. Tell us what that meant to you when you got that phone call.
It was a special moment for sure. I still actually have. I didn't answer the call because I didn't recognize the number, and so All House left a message for me to call him back, and he said, you've been elected, blah blah blah, and I still have the message on my phone because it was it was like a culmination of all the hard work, all the years, all the blood, sweat, tears, the camaraderie, the Savage crew, my boys that. We still, we were texting each other in a group text on Friday. Just the things that it's done for me from that standpoint, and then also professionally in Sioux Falls. I can walk into most businesses and have a conversation with the owner, and half of them will know who I am, and some of them will be like, "Oh yeah, we're Storm season ticket holders," and so just everything that it's done for my life. Being elected into the Hall of Fame was like a culmination. Like you did some things really wrong, but you did some things really right, So that's kind of, it was a great moment for me.
Well, Corey, great to have you on the Kurtiss Riggs Show. I appreciate what you did as a player and what you're doing as a coach. And also you have been a great travel mate as we've been roommates this year. And it's been great doing that. And we got a couple more of those trips coming up, don't we?
Yeah, we get to go to Bismarck again this weekend. And then we have a bye week, and then I think we're home for a couple weeks in a row.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Iowa and Arizona, two big games. But, that's the one thing Kurtiss preached when we were getting done with the game was, okay, we lost. It's over. We're going to go learn from it. We're going to work on what we need to do to get better. But now we have Bismarck, because playing a team a second time, you don't get what you got the first time. Like you're going to get a much better team. You're going to get they're going to know, they're going to be able to grade 5 games now and know like tendencies that we like to do on defense, on offense, special teams. So, we need to get prepared, work on some things, a lot of things that we need to get better at. And just, go to work, make it a business trip.
Corey, thanks for being on the Kurtiss Riggs Show. Great stuff.
Hey, Rich, I always appreciate you having me on. Have a great day.
Corey Johnson, Hall of Famer with the Sioux Falls Storm. And we go to break. We'll take your third call, 336-1230, 4 free tickets to that Iowa Barnstormer game on April 20th, courtesy of Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. We'll be back right after this.
Your body is a complex arrangement of bone and tissue that requires only the best to maintain it. At Orthopedic Institute, that's our specialty. Our services have been specifically tailored to provide the best orthopedic care in the region. Orthopedics is what we do. That's why Orthopedic Institute is the one to trust to keep your body in motion.
Big Show, this segment brought to you by Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs, located 917 South Cliff Avenue, and working to further enhance deliveries in Sioux Falls by supplementing their delivery staff with a third-party delivery company. So you get your subs baked fresh, sliced fresh, and delivered fresh. That's Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Man, that's good. Now, Coach Riggs and I didn't have a chance to talk about the game coming up on Saturday, but he said this one thing that we need to remember. Bismarck is getting better. When we come back, we'll wrap up the Kurtiss Riggs Show. And again, this segment brought to you by Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Baked fresh, sliced fresh, and delivered fresh. Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Man, that's good. We'll be back right after this.
Is it time to sell your equipment? Sell it on AuctionTime.com, the best resource for selling farm equipment, construction equipment, trucks, and trailers. Powered by Tractor House, Machinery Trader, and Truck Paper, Auction Time brings you the largest audience of bidders from across the country and around the world. Get more for your equipment. See our current listings at AuctionTime.com or call 800-334-7443.
Segment of the Kurtiss Riggs Show. I want to thank our guests, head coach Kurtiss Riggs, along with John Shape, the trainer, assistant trainer with the Sioux Falls Storm, and also coach and Hall of Famer Corey Johnson. I appreciate them being on the Kurtiss Riggs Show. And when we go to break, when we go off the air, actually, we'll take your third call, 336-1234. Free tickets brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. Thank you to Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and the Orthopedic Institute for sponsoring the Kurtiss Riggs Show. Coming up on Saturday, Storm's going to be on the road up to Bismarck, North Dakota, to take on the Bismarck Bucks, and that ball game is at 6:05 on Saturday, and you can hear it on our sister station, FM 107.9. I want to thank John Michaels, our studio producer and engineer, for keeping the Kurtiss Riggs Show going on the straight and narrow. Appreciate everything he does in the broadcast also. I want to thank all of you for making us a part of your day, and I hope you enjoyed the Kurtiss Riggs Show right here on FM 98.1 AM 1230 Sports Radio KWSN.